Hi, and welcome back to Continuously Refined. Cicely and I have been gone for a minute, not
Yeah,
intentionally. We have been
yeah.
insanely busy,
Life
but
happens.
we are so excited to be here and recording this episode all about glucose, insulin resistance, a continuous glucose monitor, and changes that we've made in our lives. And Cicely, I was thinking on my drive here to record um, how it has been 3 years in the making since I realized that I had insulin resistance and really high glucose and PCOS and needed to make a change. And it's been
That's
3 years.
crazy. Mine's been almost 6, which is wild to think about. Like I realized that the other day cuz I started working with a new functional medicine doctor, and so I had to pull old blood work from my old doctor, and I was pulling tests from 2020 and I was like, hello.
Hello, why was that so long ago? Because it feels like
Literally.
yesterday.
Yeah.
But anywho, that's why we love our podcast and love talking about it and sharing with others because we have been in it. We've been in the thick of it. We've been in the
Mhm.
lowest of lows and the highest of highs with our health. And now I feel like we're kind of in just this routine rhythm. And so, really excited to talk about something that a lot of people struggle with, but they might not even know it until they actually go get tested. So, a lot of
That's so
people
true.
don't know that they have high glucose levels or could be insulin resistant. But it was one of the biggest things that I struggled with and was a major cause of my PCOS symptoms.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really realize I struggled with it. I had all these energy crashes and honestly a lot of the symptoms that we'll talk about that relate to insulin resistance, but I was never able to point them towards that because who talks about insulin resistance? Like nobody, no doctor had been like, "Oh, you might be insulin resistant." Like the only thing I knew about insulin was, "Oh, it's tied to diabetes," and it's actually a lot more than that. And so we wanted to kind of start by just explaining what glucose is, what insulin is, and then how those can affect us. So, glucose and insulin essentially help to manage your body's energy because they lower your blood sugar levels. And so your glucose levels, they naturally fluctuate. They'll go up and down, and that's normal. But you don't want it to stay high for too long or to crash too quickly. They're supposed to fluctuate kind of like naturally. And a high or an excess glucose level in your blood means that you have inflammation and oxidative stress, which leads to a lot of other processes in the body and will cause them to not work properly.
Yes. So this is like a huge issue that a lot of us go through based on diet and lifestyle, and our body doesn't know how to manage the insulin. So we get glucose. It's an energy source. We need it. We need some blood sugar to keep us going from day to day. But where the insulin aspect comes in is when we eat something and glucose spikes in our blood, our body releases insulin. Well, this insulin is almost like a key and a key to unlock it so then the cell can let in the glucose. So that's what insulin is. It's a hormone that's released from the pancreas. And you don't want excess glucose in your blood. You want it to be unlocked and go into the cell so then the cell can use it as energy. And someone who has what we're going to refer to as insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance is unable to manage that level of insulin. So maybe their body is releasing too much insulin, or with insulin resistance, the cells aren't even recognizing the insulin as a key to open it and then let in the glucose, which is something that I and my body really struggled with. I had this excess level of glucose in my blood because my cells weren't recognizing the insulin to open them and let it in. And so I really struggled with fatigue. I was tired all the time. I would have these
Mm-hmm.
afternoon crashes and needed to take a nap once 2 p.m. hit.
Yeah, that
I,
3 to 5 p.m. crash,
oh,
not normal,
brutal.
guys. Not normal
No,
at all, even though it's normalized in our society. That actually is a very big sign of insulin resistance.
no, you shouldn't need the afternoon pick me up coffee. You should
Nope.
be able to go through the whole day. Like God gave
Mm-hmm.
us when the sun is up, we should have the energy to go do life.
Yep.
Along with some weight gain, I definitely, what I was really struggling with this was couldn't manage my weight. Like, no matter how little
Yeah.
I ate, no matter how much I exercised, it didn't matter. I was overweight. I had brain fog. I would like listen to
Mm-hmm.
something in class and then forget it when I was trying to study later on. I was almost like constantly hungry, wanting to snack.
Yeah. Even like
And then,
after eating, when you're still
yes,
hungry, like you just had a full meal and then you're still hungry after, and it's like, okay.
what is this? With this increased, it, honestly, I'm just ranting all these issues that we face, but like I experienced them. With this excess glucose, it causes inflammation in your body. So then other processes can't work. So I was getting sick all the time
Mm-hmm.
because my immune system was weak. And so it's just, it is one big cycle. And it is also one of the main cause and effects with PCOS. They actually work very much intertwined.
Yeah.
And so,
So a lot of different things can almost cause insulin resistance, right? Like you were kind of just saying, like PCOS is one of them. That if you notice you have PCOS, get diagnosed with PCOS, you might start to have insulin resistance. It's something that my doctors pointed out for me. If you have excess weight, that could be a key indicator. A lack of physical activity can very much so cause insulin resistance, and just kind of sitting around, you're letting that blood sugar kind of be stagnant and it's going to crash more, and that's just all together not good. Genetic factors can definitely play a role. High blood pressure can play a role, which that can also be genetic at times. And the biggest thing for me was stress, and acute and chronic stress. And I think sometimes we don't even realize how stressed our bodies are and that we're just putting them in a state of stress. Like we've talked so many times about, even when working out, if you're only ever doing cardio and you were always running and you were doing all like things like that, cycling, running, you're putting stress on your body. And like, yes, it's a good stress, but it's still stress on your body. And so if you're also piling on top of that stress from just life and other things and activities, then you're going to have chronic stress. And that is what definitely caused mainly my insulin resistance.
yeah, you're when you're stressed out, your body's not working the way it should be. So 2 weeks ago, I got a hold of a continuous glucose monitor, and I was so excited. Shout out my friend Kate Lipkowski, who works at Abbott and has sells these with
I was going
Lingo.
to say what spawned this, but I didn't think about Kate.
Yes. And so I got a hold of a continuous glucose monitor. It looks like one of the diabetes monitors that goes on the back of your forearm, and it gets like needled into you. Didn't feel it at all. It's like a little pinch and it stays on you. So I had it for 7 days, and it's something like we talked about. I've struggled for so many years. And so I really wanted to track and understand like what types of food are making my blood glucose spike. What, depending on what times I'm eating my meals, am I exercising after? All these things I wanted to understand how it worked and really read the graphs. And I loved every minute of this little study that I did on myself. So my worst spike over the 7 days was after an In-N-Out meal, actually. I never eat fast food. So I was shocked at actually how much better my blood glucose has got over the last 3 years. But my worst spike was In-N-Out because the food is fried in really processed oil. Fries are very heavy in carbs. And then I went and sat on my couch and I didn't like exercise after. So what I watched is like when I would eat my lunches and I'd go for a walk after, my glucose would naturally spike and quickly fall because like just a quick little 5-10 minute walk really helps manage and gets your body moving, gets the blood flowing, and the insulin is able to work better to get that glucose into your cells. Something that I was really proud of was my breakfast never once had a crazy spike. It would only spike about, I'm trying to think how to explain it, about halfway of what my dinners would spike. And I was really proud of this because I really focused my breakfast on high protein. So even if I was having a yogurt bowl, which I think is pretty high in sugar, with granola, it didn't really spike because I was eating Greek yogurt, which is paired with a lot of protein. And so
Awesome.
I had so much fun. Shout out my continuous glucose monitor. And you can also test this via blood work, which both Cicely and I have done.
Yeah. I think that's awesome because I know we both struggled a lot with breakfast and like getting a high protein breakfast in when we started focusing on tackling our insulin resistance. That's like was one of the hardest things. So you can definitely test it in that way. Like, I think continuous glucose monitor is awesome and so cool to be able to tell, because I feel like a lot of times we like know these things, like even like, oh, you know that like going for a walk after a meal helps, but not until we actually see it are we like, oh yeah, like we'll do that because like now it's proven. But you can also test
Hmm.
via blood work. So you can test things like hemoglobin, which has over a 3 month span the average in your blood sugar. And you can also test triglycerides. That's the amount of fat that's stored in your bloodstream. The higher levels equal higher resistance. Cholesterol is another key indicator. If you have increased cholesterol, specifically high LDL levels, which my LDL levels have almost always been high when I've been tested, those are all associated with insulin resistance. I wasn't able to find like all of my tests for those specific things. I like saw one stat, but then I wasn't able to find the 2023 ones. But I did find that in 2020, when I was tested, my insulin level was 11.1, which isn't super, super high, but it is on the higher side. And my glucose was 85. And in 2023, when I was, I guess, last tested on these things, I was able to get it down to my insulin was a 9.3 and my glucose was 79. So glucose didn't drop a ton, but also didn't really need to. But my insulin level went back into range, which was awesome. And we can both kind of talk about just how we were able to do this. How did we lower our levels? Even Shayna, like you're saying, like you know that your glucose levels are so much better than what they used to be. A big thing for me, I started with getting enough
Mm.
sleep. I've always prioritized sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but I think it's also important to get good sleep. And so you can be laying in bed for 8 hours, but if you're tossing and turning and not sleeping soundly throughout the night because you're scrolling on your phone before going to bed, because you're around blue light and different light too much before bed, like all of these things don't help. Getting less than 5 hours is directly linked and proven to increase your sugar cravings, which can then create insulin resistance.
Yeah, it's crazy the effect that like poor lifestyle can have on our inflammation and overall body. So, regular exercise also really helps with managing your blood sugar because it gets your heart rate pumping, which gets your blood moving around. So, your blood's not as static and it gets your heart healthy, decreases inflammation, helps lower your excess glucose. Stress levels, managing stress, trying to find ways, whether that is meditation, slowing down, yoga, sitting in a sauna, finding things that you enjoy, like going to hang out with your friends, that can lower your stress.
Yeah.
Um, and really, really, of course, like the food you were eating and something that I saw, I ate so clean those entire 7 days that I had my glucose monitor, except when I ate the In and Out. And I mean, it was like the worst spike ever. It was double the amount of spike, like in height, and then it stayed for a really long time before it dropped. And
Wow.
so, focusing on a whole food diet is one of the key highest things that I would definitely recommend, as well as like with my breakfast. That high protein really, really helped manage my blood sugar. So I didn't get a high spike, gave my body enough time for the insulin to work and the cells to open up. Um, Low glycemic veggies are also really good. Glycemic is the level of the way that the sugar will spike in your body. So if a fruit is blended up versus eaten whole, if it's blended up in a liquid form, it actually has a higher glycemic level. So it'll make your blood sugar spike quicker and stay up longer. So a banana in a blender is much different than eating a banana whole, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Glycemic levels actually also really change with rice. So, fun tip, if you soak your rice for like, say, 30 minutes to an hour in water before you cook it, it'll lower the glycemic level. And so your body won't spike as much by eating that rice because it's been soaked. So it's easier to digest. Crazy. There's so many fun little things that you can learn. I feel like we go on and
That's
on.
no, it's so true. Even things like turmeric and cinnamon, those naturally lower inflammation in your body, so those can help. Magnesium helps a million things in your body, but it can also help your body's insulin receptors. So, yeah, like we said, there's a million things. I would say the biggest thing is high protein, low glycemic, low carb diet, because those carbs are turned into sugar, and sugar is what spikes your blood sugar, and that is what leads to your insulin resistance, and that is just a whole cycle that just follows suit and goes around and around. But another thing that can help is intermittent fasting. Now, this we say that this could help, but I also, like, for us, it's not recommended because it's not great for our hormones. And so you definitely have to be careful of like the other processes happening in your body and if this is beneficial. I started with intermittent fasting in 2020 and I did a little bit of it. I didn't like it because it wasn't suitable to my lifestyle, for one. I was having to go to class, but I wasn't able to eat till noon, and it was difficult. But the reason that I did it was because it allowed my body even more time to recover. So as it is, I try not to eat past 9 p.m. and then 9 a.m. the next day, or 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. the next day, whatever I know like I'm going to be able to do. And so intermittent fasting just gives your body a longer amount of time to be able to stabilize your blood sugar and lower the insulin levels.
Yeah, exactly. It also, we know that snacking isn't the best for us. Like we need to give our digestive system a rest. So intermittent fasting can kind of help with that and help lower those food cravings. I've never done it. My doctor's never recommended it to me. I'm not particularly a proponent of it just because, like you were saying, Cicely, with your lifestyle, like if our body is giving us natural hunger cues, like our body's hungry, it needs to eat, like we should be fueling it. Um, it also, when you're hungry, can increase your cortisol levels because if your body's not getting the fuel that it needs, it's going to start stressing out. And we know that
Yeah.
that rise in cortisol causes inflammation and also, like you mentioned, really can disrupt our women's hormones because we are so sensitive to that stress and inflammation. And if you're going to deplete the energy sources and increase that stress, you are going to throw off your estrogen and progesterone secretion, which can lead to irregular periods and worsen PMS symptoms. And kind of like you said, we really shouldn't be eating anyway too late in the night. So, like, you're not eating between 7 and 7 anyway. Um, and so that's kind of like my quote unquote fasting.
Yeah. And it is. That still gives your body like a 12-hour period to reset and to fully digest. Also, we've talked about before, but we talked about how it's beneficial to get adequate sleep in order to help. Well, if your body is too focused on digesting food, it's not going to be able to fully sleep and restore and do the other processes that your body needs to restore while it's sleeping because it's focused on digestion if you eat too close to going to sleep. So if you notice, literally everything is connected, which we always talk about, but
Yeah.
it's so true. All of the processes in your body work together to help each other for a reason, and this is a great example of that.
I just love the human body and
Yeah,
praise Jesus and the Lord for and
so
God
true.
for creating us how we are. But yes, all things glucose insulin resistance. Hopefully there were some tips in there that y'all can take and implement into your lives because even if you don't have insulin resistance, these things will decrease inflammation and greatly improve the quality of your life. You'll be happier. You won't be tired. You won't
Yeah.
be hungry all the time, moody. I would get the worst hangriness, like mood swings, yeah, hanger. Like I would be
Hanger,
hungry that I
yeah.
would be angry. Those
Hangry,
don't happen. Those
yeah.
don't happen anymore.
I
Well,
love it. I
depending
know
on who you ask.
it's so nice when you start to put together like, oh my God, all these things are connected. Like, oh, I feel all these symptoms and they kind of were all solved by one thing and by like just fixing the way that I eat and the way that I work out. And yes, we say all of that and make it sound really easy, and it's not. Obviously,
It's not.
lifestyle
It's
changes are difficult, but
yeah.
one thing at a time, like we always talk about baby steps, and it's helpful, and it's so nice when you're not crashing all the time and you're not tired and you're not angry and super like moody and sensitive. And so, well, we hope that you guys learned something today, and let us know if there's anything specific that you guys want to hear more about, that you want us to dive deeper into or talk about in future episodes. But with that, we will talk to you guys again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.